Hi everybody, I'm Tabitha, and today we're doing a little something different. We're talking about books. I recently had the opportunity to meet a couple of young fans, hi guys, who watch these videos, and they reminded me that they are readers first and not necessarily writers. We had a great conversation about books and how much they loved my 5-star books video, and so this week, this is for them. We're going to try a little something new. On the last Tuesday of every month, like today, I'm going to post a video where I give reviews of all the books that I read that month. Before I do that for this month, I need to give you a few disclaimers. Number one, these videos are my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. If you've read one of the books I talk about, drop your opinion in the comments. Just please remember to be respectful of my opinion and of the work the author put in. Number two, I read everything. You'll catch on pretty fast. I read different age categories, different genres, different release years. I read indie and traditional. You're going to get a really eclectic mix of books in these videos. Number three, if you think there's a book that I would like based on something you see in this video, drop the name of that book recommendation in the comments. But I should warn you, my to-be-read list is over 300 books strong, so I don't know when I'll get to it. Number four, I'm going to make these videos on the day I finish a book. That means you're not always going to get put together, makeup on, and nice lighting. It is what it is. Sorry. And number five, I should warn you that I have a goal to read 104 books this year. That's 2 a week. So there could be a lot of reviews in these videos. This might be the longest video I post to this channel. Sorry. Buckle up, I guess. All right, with that out of the way, we better dive into April's books. Hi, guys. All right, it's April 5th, and I just finished my first book for the month of April. Yay! So this is the book we're talking about, The Alienist by Caleb Carr. Let's see, this book was originally published in 1994. This edition, this cover is a 2017 cover after they made it an original series. The book itself is like 487 pages. Took me like 11 days to read it. This one was published by Random House. Category, it's an adult book, and genre, it would be a crime thriller. All right. So this book takes place in 1896 New York. It's actually kind of a cool idea, a cool premise. It's a serial killer is being hunted by not hunted, but they're trying to find out who he is by a psychologist, which apparently was known as an alienist back in 1800s, and I didn't know that. So that was something cool that I learned. Let's start with what I didn't like so that I can end on what I did like, end on a good note, like I like to do. So what I wasn't crazy about is I've been to New York. I love New York, but I'm not familiar with New York per se. Like I couldn't draw you a map of New York. I felt a little lost sometimes because I wanted to know where that place was now so I could know how it compared to the 1896 description. And so that was kind of like, that wasn't the book's fault, but I was almost frustrated with myself that I didn't know the geography of New York better, I guess. And it takes a while to get into the 1896, the language, the terms. So that took me a little bit, and I felt okay with it by about, I would say like 25% of the way through the book. And the last thing is that we're dealing with 1896 acceptance of diversity or not. So sometimes I felt like I was offended by some of the way people were talking or the things people were saying. And then I had to remind myself that things were a little different in 1896. Okay, so let's get into what I did like. I loved seeing this as the birth of profiling. That's what I kept thinking. Like, this is where profilers are going to come from, right? Like in today's crime thrillers, which I'm a huge fan of, there's FBI profilers and people who do this for a living. And this was almost like the birth of it. And that was really, really cool. I liked the accuracy of the history. Some of the characters, Theodore Roosevelt is in this. So there's some characters that are accurate and related to things we know. And that was really neat and really cool. The book, there would be parts in the book where it would pick up and it would feel modern. And you're like, wow, what a cool book. And then you'd remember, whoa, wait a minute. I'm in 1896. Like, I had one reminder, I was really into it and it's flowing like it's modern and we're way into the book at this point. And then he makes a comment about how they just discovered the planet of Mars. And it's like a shocking, like, oh, that's right, I'm in 1896 reminder. That was really cool. I like that. So who do I recommend this book for? Who should rush out right now and get it if you haven't already read it? My history lovers, if you're a history lover, especially if you're a big fan of New York history, you need to read this. It's cool. If you're a crime thriller fan and you're looking for something a little different, a little original, can't go wrong with like the birth of the serial killer book, right? Like 1896 Birth of Profiling. That's really cool. Overall, I'm going to go a 3-star rating on this one. And that's if you know me and my Goodreads and how I score things, that's the rating I reserve for something that I enjoyed, but I feel like it has a really specialized audience. So again, if you're a history fan or a crime thriller fan, or even better, if you're a fan of both and you're interested in how they mesh and how they meld, I would highly recommend The Alienist by Caleb Carr for you. So 3-star book. That's my first one. Let's hope that I can hit the other 7 before the month is out. All right. It is April 9th by the magic of, videos and cutting. We're now in April 9th, and I just finished this book, Mirage, and I'm sorry, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Sumaya Dodd. Mirage by Sumaya Dodd. The book was originally published in 2018 by Flatiron Press, so it's a relatively new release for me compared to the last one that I just read, which had been out for a little while. Let's see. We are sitting at 308 pages, and it took me 4 days, 3-4 days to finish it. Category, this is a young adult, and genre, it is fantasy. All right. If I had to give you a synopsis of this book, I'd say we're in a fantasy world here where the cruel Vathic Empire has taken control, and they've enslaved another group. Amani, who's our main character, she's pretty much a no one, not a Vathic, until the day she discovers she has a unique feature that's going to make her useful to the half Vathic princess. So that's my spoiler without synopsis, I would say. Let's start with what I don't like, so I can end on the high note of what I did like. What I didn't like, this is a really minor one, guys. I can't say nothing, right? So what I didn't like is that, as with other fantasy, including mine, I would say, the made-up language takes a little to get used to. There's words that you've never heard. Like I just used some in the synopsis. So there's some words that you're not familiar with, maybe you haven't heard of. It takes a little while to get used to, but honestly, it didn't ruin it for me. It's just I had to think of something to say. What I did like is a lot bigger list. First of all, this cover is gorgeous. So, if you're judging books by covers, which I tend to do, this cover is gorgeous. The other things I liked, these characters are deep and relatable. I adored them. I genuinely liked Amani. I felt like she had real, not only did she have flaws, but she just had things that I really liked about her and admired about her. She's not the only character I felt that way about. There's a lot to love in these characters and their situations. I want more of them. So I'm hoping there's a second book soon. The struggle for the people is really well written. I feel like you could do a whole character study about how this relates to history in general, even though it's fantasy and it's not historic. But we have a group of people who think they're better than others and have taken control of them and have basically enslaved another group. And really the question is, by doing that, who did they really give the power to, I guess? So I felt like this was a great, felt realistic capturing of that, for lack of a better term. Last thing I would say I really liked is I'm a poet. I was a poet first. I love poetry. And so there are poems in here. It's by no means the focus of the book, but there are poems in here that they're beautiful and I love them and they're very well written. And I connected with that. I connected with the emotion in the poetry that was used here, which is pretty cool. So who should read it? If you are YA fantasy fans, you cannot go wrong right here, especially if you like to get lost in other worlds and you specifically like otherworld fantasy. That this highly recommended, highly suggested. Comp titles, if you are fans of Cinder, where they're in that Cinder series where they're in another world and things like that. This doesn't have that fairy tale twist necessarily, but there are parallels, I would say. The Red Queen series, if you're fans of that, rise up, take control and know who you really are kind of theme, kind of message. Like Red Queen, I'd say fans of those books are going to really love Mirage. If you're a poet or a poetry fan, or you in general just love beautiful language that's written like poetry, this is the one I would suggest. Overall star rating, I'm going to land 4 stars on this one. For me, 4 stars means this is less of a niche audience and you're more likely to just thoroughly enjoy the overall reading of this, and it was well written and you thoroughly enjoy it. 4 stars for me means it was really good, not forgettable, not one I'm going to immediately forget about. Yeah, highly recommend it. I'd suggest you pick this one up. Hello, it is April 11th, and I just finished my 3rd book for the month of April. So this one took me 2 days. Yes. The book is I See Life Through Rosé-Colored Glasses by Lisa Scottoline and her daughter, Francesca Saratella, which I might be saying wrong. The book was originally published in 2018, and it's 338 pages. And as I just said, I read it in 2 days this time. It's published by St. Martin's Press, category adult, and genre, it's nonfiction, actually. So this is, I would describe it as a collection of true stories of falling out of love, getting older, and generally just being a woman. Let's start with what I didn't like so that I can end on a high note like I like to do. You know, again, I'm reaching for something, honestly, but some chapters are kind of peppered with random things that can be a little distracting. However, what I did like, the stories are laugh out loud funny, and they are relatable, and they just made me feel better about all the times in my life that I have made mistakes. The book reads like Lisa and Francesca are sitting and talking to you, which allowed me to forgive them for the randomness. I felt like I was sitting and having a conversation with them. They mention, I don't remember which one of them mentions, that they got to do the audio recording for this book. So I almost want to read it again, listen to the audio recording of them. Again, I'm sure the stories lose nothing in listening to them tell them. That I just love that. That was amazing. So who should read this? Honestly, mothers and daughters and just people. I'm going to say women would get more out of it than men, but women who want to laugh about real life and laugh about real mistakes and things that we've all thought and gone through. Those are the people who should read this book. So overall rating, I'm going to leave it with 4 stars for me. 4 stars is what I give a book that I completely love and would totally read again. I normally will knock a book down to 3 stars if it has a really specific niche genre. And this, women are half the population, right? So I'm going to say that this doesn't have such a niche genre. You can enjoy it as long as you love books by women, for women, about women. Yeah, you're going to love it. And nonfiction fans, you like true stories and you just want to laugh at real life, go for it. 4 stars for me for I See Life Through Rosé-Colored Glasses. 3rd book for the month of April. Okay, it is April 16th, and I just finished my 4th book for the month of April, which means it took me 5 days, if my calculations are correct for this one. So this is the book we're talking about. Hidden Sea by Gregory Maguire, and it has I wouldn't say it's a title or part of the title, but it does say it's a tale of the once and future nutcracker. Let's see, this one was published in 2017 by HarperCollins. And it's 287 pages. So 5 days for 287 pages for me isn't the best. But I'll blame it on the fact that I read it over a weekend. Let's see. Publisher. Oh, I said HarperCollins. Age category. This is adult, and genre. It's a fairy tale retelling, so fantasy, I would say. I had to summarize it. I'd say we know the story of the Nutcracker, and of course the story of little Clara. But now this is the story of the toy carver who made it all possible. What I didn't like, because I like to start with what I didn't like and then lead into it. So what I didn't like is not everybody's going to love Gregory Maguire. I'm a fan, but I've had a lot of people tell me some of the other Gregory Maguire books, maybe Wicked or Son of a Witch, you think they're a little slow, a little dry. They do have he uses some big words, some big language. And you really have to focus on a Gregory Maguire book to get the most out of it. This one is no different than that. So you're going to be completely immersed in a world, and its description, he can almost goes to like romantic levels when he's describing stuff. It's just very descriptive and very beautiful. But you can get hung up on that, and it can take a long time. And yes, sometimes you feel like you could have skipped whole pages or paragraphs and not missed anything other than a great description of it. So if you like plot driven, that's something you're definitely not going to like, is that although this has a lot of plot, it does have a lot of description as well. What I did like, on the other hand, I love the nods to all the fairy tales that I know, and I love the twists, and I love the characters introduced that I think I've heard of, and trying to guess who they are and where they might be from and what they might be bringing to the story. That's awesome. And then something different from this book that I wasn't expecting that surprised me and I really found that I enjoyed is this is a main character who truly believes that he's not worthy of his own story. In fact, at one point, he makes a comment like that, having something to do with he knows the fairy tales and that he wouldn't be worthy of being in that story. And that is an interesting take on a main character, to give us somebody who belongs in a fairy tale, is in a fairy tale retelling, but doesn't think he deserves to be. And that's kind of cool. Yeah, so I really like that. It was something unique and it was something different. I'm also a huge fan of the Nutcracker story in general. This takes place substantially before that. I mean, really, the Nutcracker component to it is very minor and very small, but I liked this more than I thought I would, getting to know that character and finding his world. So that leads me right into who should read this book. If you're looking for stories about how somebody lonely or broken could still change the world, this character works well for that. If you like your story to be character driven, this works well for that. If you like to study literature from the past and connect to it, this works well for that. Specifically, yes, we're talking fairy tales, but you'll find shadows of Hans Christian Andersen, and you'll find shadows of original Grimm Brother fairy tales in here, which is really neat. But he also brings in some ancient Greek and things like that. And he doesn't always openly tell you that's what he's drawing from, but if you're familiar with old literature and you love that, you'll see it, and that's kind of cool. Overall star rating, I'm landing 3 stars. And you know that means it has a very specific niche genre. Not everyone's going to love this book. But if you're fans of character-driven, descriptive stories where a broken character can still be the hero, can't go wrong with this one. Hidden Sea, Gregory Maguire. 4th book for April. Okay. Today is the 22nd, and I actually have finished 2 since the last time I recorded 2 books, and I'm just, I didn't have a chance to record them, so we're just going to do them both today. So the 5th book that I read for the month of April is this one right here, Winner Take All by Laurie DeVore. This book was published in 2018 by Imprint. It is 325 pages plus 2 pages for the author's note at the end, which I highly recommend taking the time to read. I read this entire book in one day. Finished it on April 17th. Started it and finished it on April 17th. Whole book in one day. It's a young adult, and I would categorize it as romance, kind of like contemporary, sort of. Okay, so let me give you a quick synopsis. Nell is in a competition she needs to win. Just life for her is a competition she needs to win at all times. She will be the best at everything. Jackson is the picture of prep school perfect, and he's always one step ahead of Nell, which of course drives her absolutely crazy. So their competitive spirit is like a match in gasoline, really. Yeah. So let's start with what I didn't like. You're not supposed to like these two, and in a romance, you normally are supposed to like them. And so at first I kept thinking maybe something was wrong with me. Why didn't I like them? Oh my God, am I getting too old for YA romance? Took me a couple chapters to get into it and start to find things I liked about them. And then reading that author's note, I was like, oh, that was on purpose. I wasn't supposed to like them. So that was good. There are a few chapters where it just felt like a half step overplayed. Like just she would make a good point by having her characters do something, and then they would almost do one thing too far, bordering on like either cliche or over the top. I mean, it happens sometimes in YA, I suppose, because we really want to drive that point home to teens or younger readers. But it can be irritating, I guess. I wasn't irritated with this book, but it can be irritating to some people, I guess. Okay, but let's get to what I did like. It's messy, and it's real, and it's raw, and I like that. I really like that. And that tends to be a common theme in young adult romance, which I think is why I prefer young adult romance. And I don't particularly like regular adult romance. The other thing I want to say, and when you read her author's note, and which you could read first, and it doesn't ruin much. When you read her author's note, it drives home that was her point is that there's a huge message here about women in society and um, kind of the double standard that women are treated with. And I felt like that was, it ran through the book a lot, and sometimes it was overemphasized in the book a little bit, but it was important, and it's important for teens to read and hear. And I would say boys and girls, it's important to read and to hear and to catch on and to see that both sides of it, which was interesting. Anyway, so who should read this? If you're looking for a fast read, if you are a big fan of young adult romance, or if you're all about that girl power, or if you're looking for a book that shows obsessive love or like toxic competition, this is a great one. So maybe you have a teen at home that you feel like needs that message about obsessive love or toxic competition. This is a good one, and it kind of drives that home that that's not always healthy. How's that? So anyway, recommended. I went with 4 stars on this one. It's a good, fast read with a strong theme. I enjoyed it, and I would read it again. So that's that one. It was the 5th book I read. I'm going to go right through to the 6th one because, like I said, I read this one in one day, so I didn't have a chance to film. So the second one, or the 6th one I read for the month, is The Moors Are Missing. Obviously, James Patterson's name comes top of the book, but it does have 3 other artists with him in this one. I'll get to that in one quick second. This is a 2017 book by Hachette Group. It's classified as an adult thriller. It's 474 pages. Took me 3 days to read it. I finished it 2 days ago on April 20th. So the book, the synopsis, if I had to give you a synopsis, I really can't, because it's 3 short thrillers compiled into one book. And so they're very different. They don't share much in common other than the fact that they're thrillers. So let me do this. The first 2 books, the first book is co-authored by Lauren Esselman? I don't know. Second one is Sam Hawken, and the third one is Ed Chatterton. So these are the other authors that I said I'd get to in a second. Let's go with what I didn't like. I did not like the third story. Absolute Zero, the third story in this book, wasn't my favorite short story. It didn't allow for depth of character analysis, which of course short stories sometimes don't. But I felt like that would have helped Absolute Zero if I had understood the characters a little bit better and their motivation. I think the big problem is that the good guy and the bad guy in Absolute Zero their actions are very similar. They're too much alike. They're justifying things that they're doing. And since we don't have the character backstory, we don't know if we agree with their justification necessarily. So we don't really know who we're rooting for. I mean, and we know who we're supposed to root for. That's pretty obvious, but we don't know if we really do. So that was tough. Honestly, I would call all 3 of these just a little predictable, a little more predictable than I like in a thriller. When I'm reading a thriller, I want to be shocked. That's what scares me, right? Being shocked and being like, whoa, I did not see that coming from this bad guy is scary. They call this a thriller. I don't know that I would have. But then again, I read a lot. So maybe I just have too much background. What did I like? Well, they're quick reads. There's 3 short stories in here. They're very quick reads. Honestly, I like the main characters of books 1 and books 2. I liked the direction book 2 could have gone / was going. Those are, by the way, called The Moors Are Missing. Here, I can do this. The Moors Are Missing is book 1. And book 2 is called The Housewife. Terrible title. Pretty decent thriller. And book 3 is called Absolute Zero. So those are our 3 stories. I'm kind of talking about 3 at once. So there's your synopsis if you want one of each story. I'll just leave it up. So who should read it? Who might enjoy this perhaps even more than I did? If you are like huge short story fan, like you don't have a lot of time to read, you like to be able to read a short story, and then you know what? Go for it. You cannot go wrong with these. They're short. They're not bad for short stories. And maybe skip Absolute Zero. If you're a thriller fan, especially if you're a short story fan who's been looking for thrillers, or a thriller fan who's been looking for short stories, I'd say go for it. And this is going to sound really funny, but whatever, I'm just going to go with it. I wrote it down and I'm like, yeah, it's true. I'm going to go with it. If you like Liam Neeson movies, if like that's your genre, your go-to, like if it's a rainy day and you have time to watch one movie in your home and you're like, I'm just going to watch it, and you just Liam Neeson movies are your go-to, right? I could see him being in a couple of these. Like if they made these into movies, he'd be the actor. So I'd say, yeah, give it a shot. Especially if you're looking for a short story. And anyway, overall, book 3 alone would have been a 2-star, which is a rating I use if a book is overall frustrating and forgettable, which that one was for me. The other 2, though, I'd call them 3 stars. They're not bad, but honestly, they're kind of forgettable for me. Maybe a more niche market, somebody who is looking for this short, enjoys shorts more than I do. I don't know, something. Anyway, so if I average those 3-star, 3-star, 2-star, it does still end up being something I can round up to a 3-star. So I'm going to hit this one at 3 stars. But this one I'm going to go with a be careful if you're not looking for a short thriller, if you're not a fan of like a Liam Neeson style movie, you're not going to love these ones. But if you are, you're going to love them and your rating would be higher. Anyway, so that's book 5 and book 6 that I read for the month of April. Hi. All right. It is April 23rd, and yesterday I finished reading the 7th book for the month of April, and I'm going to try to get through this quickly because I live near an Air Force base who's apparently doing flyovers today. So fun times. This is the book we're talking about, Expelled by James Patterson and Emily Raymond. It is a 2017 release by Jimmy Patterson Books, which is a division of Little Brown. It is young adult. I'd call it contemporary fiction, like modern day, just general fiction. It is 296 pages, and it took me 2 days to read it. The basic premise, 4 students have been expelled. Only one of them is guilty. Very interesting premise for a book. So let's get into what I didn't like really quick. But first, a warning. It's not necessarily that I didn't like it. Just if you're a parent or a teacher, a warning. Parents and teachers know that you see this and you're okay handing it to middle grade, young adult, or just kids who are maybe even pretentious readers, but it's okay to give it to them. Jimmy Patterson books are always okay. This one is definitely on the older range than I've seen for a Jimmy book. I would probably not be comfortable giving this to a more immature middle schooler. There are some things in here that I just don't know some of our immature kiddos can handle. So you make that call, just be aware of that. That does have some older edge stuff. So what didn't I like? One of the twists in the story was mildly predictable. I saw it coming, and I hate when I guess things like that. So that was a little frustrating. So what did I like? That I didn't see all the twists coming. There was at least one twist that I didn't see. In fact, at the start of the book, if you were to tell me where you think it's going, I would have been wrong. It went in a totally different direction than I thought, and I really liked that. Something else I liked, this really had a One of Us is Lying kind of vibe. Karen McManus book, One of Us is Lying. It had that vibe to it. It's like a modern day Nancy Drew kind of, can you solve the mystery? Can you figure out who's guilty kind of vibe? And I liked that. That was really cool. So who would like this? If you're a contemporary mystery fan, if you like solving the mysteries like that, I'd say go for it. It's not a murder mystery. You're just trying to figure out who's guilty and what's going on. That definitely. If you're a high school student, or maybe you like to read about high school students or whatever, you teach high school students or work with high school students, definitely. And then, if you're looking for like a no one's perfect life lesson, kind of everyone makes mistakes sort of vibe, I'm going to say bam. In fact, if you, like me, like all 3 of those things, you work with high school students, you also believe no one's perfect and that belongs in a book, and you love mysteries, can't go wrong. This was a good book. I'm going to say 4 stars for me because I am that niche audience. I love all of that. 4 stars for me. Honestly, some of you who even aren't in all of that niche, maybe you just like mystery. It's a good story and you can't go wrong. It delivers in a really pleasing way. And actually, I liked it more than I thought I would. So that's pretty cool. So anyway, 4 stars for me. And I'm going to say recommended. I made it through without a plane going by, which is awesome. And that's my 7th book for April. Hello. All right. I just finished my 8th book. I made it. My 8th book for April, which is awesome because April's almost over. I finished it not today. I didn't finish it today. That's a lie. I finished it yesterday. But this is the book we're talking about. A Man Called Ova by Frederick Bachman. Originally, it was not in English and it was translated, but the book was published in 2012. It was translated in 2014. And it's published by Washington Square Press. It's 368 pages, and it took me like 2 days to read it. It's age category adult, and genre, it is classified as contemporary. I would say contemporary fiction, like modern day, just fiction. So your synopsis. Uva is a grumpy yet lovable old man who likes order, and he dislikes change. And the story begins when a young family moves into the neighborhood, thereby causing chaos, of course, in his world. So that's the story. I always like to start with things I didn't like so that I can end on a high note. But I got to be honest with you, for this book, I got nothing. I have absolutely not a single thing I could think of to tell you that I didn't like. I was racking my brain like, no, I have to come up with something. Nothing is perfect. I got nothing, honestly. And I thought I would. So I'm shocked. But let's do what I did like. The relationships between these characters they are relatable. They are wonderful. They are real. And I mean all the relationships. So I'm talking between two minor characters, two characters who are falling in love, two characters who have just met, just two people who happen to live next door to each other. Just all the relationships are just so real. And they're very, very well written, and it's great. The characters are completely and totally lovable. And even when they're not the best people, you can't help but love them, I think, because of how real they are. Friedrich Bachmann is amazing at analogies, at figurative language. Does a great job of painting a picture for you of exactly what they're talking like, walking like. It's amazing. I just can't say enough about how much I love this book. I literally laughed out loud at more than one spot. I had actual tears in my eyes at more than one spot, and I am not a crier. I cannot say enough about this. I loved this book. I loved it. So who should read it? Honestly, everyone. This book was translated to English in 2014. If you are as behind the times as me and you haven't read it, read it. You will not regret it. There are big messages in here about what makes life worth living. And that is something I feel like we can all benefit from hearing. I loved it. I really, really did. Anyway, my rating, I give it 5 stars. 5 stars is what I give a book when I loved it. I would reread it. I highly recommend it. And I feel like it transcends genre, that you should read it no matter what you normally read. So I'm going to suggest you take A Man Called Ova. By the way, I know this looks like A Man Called Ove, but I listened to the audiobook for some of it. By the way, if you are an audiobook fan and you're looking for a good one, highly recommended the audiobook as well. And I don't have it in front of me, but the narrator is wonderful. But the narrator, a man named Ova, pronounced it as Uva. Anyway, if you are looking for a great feel good, tug at your heartstrings, and give you strong messages about what makes life worth living book, add this one to your TBR. You won't regret it. And that's my 8th book for April. So I'm not going to stop reading for April. I still have a few days left. We'll see if I can squeeze in one more, but I hit my goal. Hello. All right. So I finished a 9th book. I squeezed a 9th book in for April, which is good because it's the last day of the month. So it's April 30th. And the book I just finished, my 9th book for April, is I Am Mercy by Mandy Lynn. This was published in 2015. Mandy Lynn is an indie author, so she publishes these herself. She doesn't have the name of the company she goes through in here, but I do believe Stone Ridge Books is her, and the name of her, like the publishing she uses. So anyway, look her up, Mandy Lynn. She's an indie author. The book's I Am Mercy, 2015. It's 450 pages. It took me, I think 5 days to read it. It's a young adult, like I'd call it historical fantasy, which is funny because I double checked with Mandy before I posted to make sure young adult historical fantasy is what she was thinking too, and it's exactly what she said. So perfect. Okay, so let me give you a little synopsis. So Ada is our main character, and she's accused of being a witch when the Black Death comes to her village. Then a woman who may actually be a witch offers a solution to the plague. The question, of course, is will Ada unlock the secret, even if it means tooling with dark magic? And really, the other question she explores is what would you do for the people you love, even if they don't love you back? Okay, so let's do what I didn't like so I can end on a high note, which is what I like to do. So my biggest thing with it was that our protagonist, Ada, seems to have a lot of things that happen to her. So a lot of other people seem in control of her story, which is kind of a bummer. I would have liked to see her be a bigger piece in her own story. There's a few words that I felt a little confused by, and I just had to basically assume what they meant, like Kruk, I think was the word that she kept using, or something like that. And it was like, I don't know what that means. I had to kind of assume, which can be a little annoying, but it's not a big deal. This didn't bother me, but I could see it bothering some people. So as a warning, I mean, it obviously doesn't bother me. I tend to do it. It's not going to be a happily ever after, all wrapped up, put a pretty bow on it ending for you. I think that's okay. I love endings that make me keep thinking and wondering. And again, didn't ruin it for me, but just a heads up and be expecting it, and then it would be okay with you too. It has a rather dark beginning. I mean, we're talking about the Black Death and the Plague. So it has a rather dark beginning, but if you're expecting it when you go in, it doesn't ruin anything. Okay, more importantly, what did I like? The concept here is awesome. So the concept here of immortality and living forever coming with a price is been explored by other authors before, but the way Mandy does it is really kind of cool and very interesting. In fact, the whole concept of an essence, kind of like a ghost sort of essence thing, is really interesting. And I imagine that's what her book Essence is going to be about as well. But I haven't read that one yet, but it's on my list. And I actually have it. I already bought it. The focus of this book of love in various forms, so not just romantic love, but relationships and things, love in various forms, is awesome. And I really liked the exploration of that. I thought that was really pretty cool. The scene descriptions are really well written. Mandy does a great job of describing exactly what you're looking at. So you can almost picture it yourself, which is kind of cool. So who would love this book? If you're really into stories about afterlife or ghosts, she calls essence, but that similar relationship, or if you could be into those things, or if you're really into stories about love in all of its many forms, I would go with this one. You can't go wrong. Plus, supporting an indie author is really cool. It's the last day of April, but you know, Indie April was huge. And if you're into supporting, looking for an indie author to support, you can't go wrong with this. It was a good book. By the way, if you go looking for this book, you're going to notice a totally different cover. This is, I believe this was an ARC that I got from Mandy. So it's not the same cover that you'll find now. And actually, I'm going to be honest with you, I like the new cover more. So Mandy, the new cover was a good choice. I really like it. It's gorgeous. I saw it on Goodreads. 4 stars. My final rating for this one, I'm going 4 stars for this one. It's unique. I like the way it went. I like the direction it went, and I highly recommended. So grab a copy of this one. You can find her on all kinds of Mandy Lynn. You can find her on all kinds of social media and nab your copy directly from her. Support indie authors, my friends. Okay, that is it for me and my books for April. I managed to get through 9 this month, which is crazy. This is probably, once I put this all together, this is probably going to be the longest video I have ever posted to this channel. So again, this is something new we're trying. I'm putting up the reviews of books I finish. Thank you to the girls, hi girls, who recommended this so that they could see what I'm reading. I hope you picked up at least something that you liked from this, maybe added a book to your TBR. Let me know if there's something you need in the comments, and if I'm capable of giving it to you, I certainly will. Hit subscribe so you know when I'm back. Keep plotting the path to your dreams, and I will see you next week. Bye.